Okay, let's talk about the state of the NAL. I'm going to talk about the matches more in depth than I did in the recap video, so some of the stuff I talk about here might be repeated from the previous video, but yeah, it just is. If you are not interested in it, there is the recap video if you want a shortened version, or if you already watched it and you don't want more in-depth, whatever, you can skip later in the video. I guess I don't really know how much further into the video, but at some point I will talk about SI points, and so I'll talk about other regions, especially EU, because there's the most contention for the very last SI spots, like 14, 15, 16, things like this. Okay, so once again, SSG versus TSM, we'll start there. They played on Oregon, and I did mention in the recap video that this game and the Beast Coast Sonics game are perfectly mirrored, which is a little bit funny. So, right, Space Station decided to go to Oregon when they could have gone to Chalet. The final ban came down to their choice between Oregon and Chalet. So, why didn't they go to Chalet is a question that some people might be wondering, and I guess after seeing them on Oregon, maybe they weren't wondering it. But if Hot and Cold hadn't gone crazy in this game, could TSM have won this? I think it's entirely possible. But he just did not give them a chance to breathe. They looked pretty good in their defensive half up until the point where he took over the game. I mean, he had to get a big 4K in this round to win it, and then they pretty solidly won the 3 rounds that they won, but then they did not win another round. So yeah, back to the Chalet thing. In stage 2, they played on Chalet, and SSG beat TSM pretty badly, 7-2. So, I mean, you have to assume that if TSM let the map that they got beat that badly on go to the final pick for Space Station, that they were ready for it this time around. I mean, SSG has played it quite a bit, but they've been very good on it. It might be their best map recently. Like, I don't know who they've lost it to in the NAL, at least. Certainly nobody last stage. And this stage, they only lost to Sonics, right? Yeah, so last stage, I think they lost to Dark Zero on Villa, and this stage they lost to Sonics on Coastline, so they haven't lost Chalet this stage or last stage. And they've played it at least several times last stage, and I don't recall actually this stage if they've even played it or not. So yeah, TSM must have been ready for it. Chalet, just thinking about it, seems like it'd be a good TSM map. And I mean, it's probably pretty solid for them, except for that SSG was way better. So Oregon, and Oregon has been a good TSM map generally, except not super recently because they did just lose it to Dark Zero, which was that so 2 weeks ago, 2 play days ago, I guess. Yeah, but it was an overtime game. TSM was slipping up a little bit because they had this super dominant defensive half. They went 5-1, won 5 in a row after losing the first one. But I guess because SSG must have thought that TSM was more ready for Chalet, and they had very recent VOD of TSM on Oregon, and they knew there were certainly some cracks in the armor, to say the least. So they took them to Oregon, and they had the prep ready. They were going to pull out the Ying every round, and to exacerbate that problem for TSM, they banned the Warden. And you can't respond to this ban, right? So it goes, one team bans attacker, the other team bans attacker, defender, and then the first team again bans a defender. So I think, defenders get the ban first. So defender bans an attacker bans an attacker bans a defender, defender bans an attacker. Yeah, I think so. Something like that. Right, and you ban both defenders are banned after both attackers. So if you want to ban a Warden, the only way you can get around the Ying play is to have already banned Ying. You don't get to see the Warden ban and then ban Ying. So, I mean, maybe you'd say, oh, SSG does play the Ying, maybe we should ban it. But like that's kind of crazy, right? There's just so many other operators that are universally played and really, really impactful. Like you might want to ban the Habana, the Thatcher, the Maverick, the Nomad, and in this game it was the Flores that TSM banned, which is very powerful on Oregon. If people are trying to clear out bunker, you just send in some Flores drones and you can clear out the shields and whatnot. And of course it's just good up anywhere. Like Malusi's quite good on the map, so you can clear out the Banshees. If there's Evil Eyes, you can get those. The shields, the Goyo shields, just even barbed wire, you can destroy ADS. You can destroy everything, of course, like pretty much everything you can get with it. And even if you don't have things to destroy, it's just free intel, and he's got us all. It's just a really good operator. So they ban it, but then SSG bring the Ying every round, and it didn't work out for them every round. I mean, obviously they only won 3 attack rounds, but 3 attacking rounds on Oregon is quite the feat. They had some really good plays in round... Oh, yeah, it must have been round 3, right? or it could have been round 6. I'm not sure, but they were also TSM was set up in mostly in pit. I mean, they were trying to protect Attic, and so I think TSM, or rather SSG, opened up Attic some way into it, and so they were of course trying to watch that. But then Bosco, the Ying, went to the Attic window, and he, got his Candela out. He charged it up, and they had ADSs ready, but he just throws it right on the ground, right in front of the window, and it never entered the line of sight of an ADS, but the flash still, juts out and stunned the guy in Attic. And then I think maybe it wasn't the round, because I swear it was Hot and Cold that got the kill off of it. But so maybe that was when they were defending. Yeah, maybe it was this round actually. But regardless, I think it's Hot and Cold that pushed through Attic, and Bosco's at the window. He might have jumped in the window as well. But anyways, he just gets around the ADSs because he doesn't throw it in the line of sight, and then all of a sudden they've taken pit, and any ADS that were there were just shot or useless or whatever. So that was a cool play to see, and we got to actually see it. It was witnessed on the player cam, and I think whoever was casting commented on it, probably Kickstar maybe. So that was cool. And yeah, so SSG are just super good, right? They faltered once last stage to Dark Zero, and they faltered only once this stage so far to Sonics. And of course they can still lose. They have several games to play, but I think they probably have probably objectively and probably also subjectively the easiest schedule. They have to play I don't even remember. Let me look at it. Who is it? It's Beast Coast, Xset, and Dark Zero or something like that. Is that right? Beast Coast, Xset, Dark. Yeah. But not in that order. So Dark Zero and then Beast Coast, then Xset is who they're going to be playing. So SSG look like the favorite for first place, except for that they are tied on points with Sonics and do not have the head-to-head against Sonics. But Sonics have to play whom? They need to play against TSM, Mirage, Oxygen. So they have to play two, top tier team, high tier teams, whatever you want to call it, and one struggling team, and Space Station gets to play two of the struggling teams, and then probably the most struggling of the top tier teams, it's either TSM or Dark Zero. Hard to say, but anyways, you get the idea. SSG has an easier schedule, but Sonics has... Sorry, I got a cough there. I don't know, maybe you heard that, maybe you didn't. Sonics have the tiebreaker against them, so SSG has to get at least one more points than Sonics, and SSG also has the head-to-head against Oxygen, and then for Sonics Oxygen, they haven't played each other yet, so they're currently neutral. So it could also be Oxygen, but it looks like first place will probably be one of these three teams. More than likely, I would imagine. So not too much else to say about this game. I mean, I don't really want to talk about Hot and Cold because, man, everyone always talks about Hot and Cold all the time. I mean, I will a little bit. He went insane. He just is somehow the TSM executor. He went colossal in this game, and he also went colossal last time he played TSM. He just made them look silly, and TSM is not a silly team. They're one of the better teams in North America for sure, and then probably also one of the better teams in the world. So let's just talk about Beast Coast Sonics. This game, I mean, it looked like maybe coming into it, Beast Coast was fired up a little bit. They got crushed by Oxygen and TSM, but more recently, they had just crushed Mirage in the previous Playday. And Sonics have been looking good, but they did falter to Xset, so they had a little, had an instance of falling to a lower tier team. But so it was proved that it could happen, but I think because it happened, it was made to be less likely to happen. They really do not want to repeat that, and I think they got taught a lesson by it. They got too cocky, or they just were not worrying about that match enough, and they tightened up and they beat down Beast Coast as it should be, I suppose. Sonics is the better team, and Beast Coast just does not look like they're in the same league as the top tier. I mean, I keep saying high tier and low tier teams, and it just looks so true. Certainly Xset, Beast Coast, and then probably Mirage are in that low tier. And then Astralis, before this stage, I mean, it looked like they were probably around the middle, but if not in that high tier class. But now they're the most struggling team of all. So I guess for at least the time being, they are a low tier team. But I think it would be more agreeable in discussion for them to... Okay, this is way too complicated. It's easier for them to regain their spot because they have proven they can be a good team, and the other teams have not as much. Mirage did really well first stage, but they had Hot and Cold, the Christ of NAL, on their team, and then they got third from last stage, and now they're not doing too hot, but they are currently alive. So yeah, Beast Coast Sonics, it was like a few good rounds from Beast Coast. I mean, they won rounds, but then Sonics just dominate. Oh man, I don't know how I do that. Sonics just dominated in a lot of rounds. I mean, they had 3 flawless rounds, you could see right there, and then they had a 6-win streak and just a 7-3 scoreline overall, pretty dominant. Yeah, Sonics just like slapped them up, and so did SSG slap up TSM. But as I said, I think in the other video, Beast Coast is a much less impressive team to slap up than TSM, and especially with TSM struggles. But Beast Coast, you know, as much as they've been beaten down by some of the top tier teams, they have at least shown that they are not going to roll over and die completely. They are still fighting, and it looks like they're pretty good for not getting relegated. It's still possible, but you know, we'll see. Xset Dark Zero. This is only what, the second overtime game of the stage, and both of them, of course, are by Dark Zero, the overtime kings. But they were dethroned here by Xset. They have now lost in the NAL recently in overtime, and Xset desperately needed these points. And you know, Xset, compared to what they normally look like, they look pretty good. And I suppose Xset also looked good in the Sonics game, so they have potential, but they just are not able to realize that potential all of the time. But maybe this is the start of something great. They do need to go on an impressive run, or, well, they need to go on a better run than Astralis, at least. They don't have to go on an impressive run. They could get no more points as long as Astralis doesn't get more than 1 point. And yeah, they have, what, 3 more games, right? They get to play, I guess I'll just look, it's Oxygen, TSM, Space Station, but in what order? Yeah, that order, I guess. Oxygen, TSM, Space Station. And you know, based on what's been going on lately, TSM should be the easiest of the 3, but still, it's, you know, it's TSM, it's not easy. And OXG and SSG are looking like absolute beasts, only having dropped 1 game apiece. So, I mean, good luck to Xset, but they get to play 3 games, and Astralis only gets to play 2 games, but they do get to play Beast Coast, so they really want to get some points there. And then Dark Zero, the other team that may or may not be struggling more than TSM in that upper echelon of the teams. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't want to talk about these games too much because, I mean, I already talked about them. I will say this, though. I was watching, I think it might have been the night after NAL, or it was like the next day, so on like Wednesday or Thursday. I was watching Yardy Dripbulin stream. You know, love the guy or hate the guy. He does some pretty good analysis. He has good perspective. I mean, certainly having been a pro before, and he's usually just a goofy kind of guy messing around in ranked or whatever with various people on his stream. But he was just doing like VOD review. And he mentioned something which I thought was interesting, and I hadn't thought too much about before, how Dark Zero, in comparison to those other high-tier teams, sort of lacks firepower, right? So the Sonics is just a bunch of gunners for the most part. Space Station, same sort of thing, and I guess even TSM, same sort of thing. I mean, Merc Bolo achieved. Come on. And then, who did I not say? Dark Zero. Oh, Auction. And yeah, Auction, you could also say, is like pretty well gunners. I mean, like gunner like you don't always think of Laxing and Foxeye, but they've just been such solid players. And then, I mean, people just like to call any like young player just a young gunner. And yeah, even though Kino got like put on support, but he is a gunner. He has been, you know, they took him off support now, and they're putting him more on like entry or flex or whatever. And anyways, squads of gunners. But then Dark Zero, right? So they have Canadian, who has pulled off impressive feats in the past, not only as an IGL, you know, is probably the second most distinguished IGL of all time, and the most in North America for sure. But he also makes some cool plays, because on attack, he is usually playing the hard bridge. As you can see, it's nothing but Habana and Thermite here. But on defense, and this isn't the best example because he was playing a lot of Tachanka, which I swear did like nothing in this game. But he'll be on he'll be on the Pulse, and that's like probably the operator he's most known for, right? But sometimes he'll be on some cool roam plays, like he'll play a little bit of Mozzie or whatever operator he's played in the last few weeks, and he'll go on the roam, and he is certainly a playmaker. Not the most mechanically gifted player, but certainly a smart player who can make things happen, who can waste a lot of time. And then Eclipse, also not thought of it as a gunner. I wouldn't say too much. A good player, and especially recently he's been putting up pretty good numbers. Hyper, certainly thought of as a gunner, but when people say gunner, you usually think of like aggressive players, I suppose, like primary entry aggressive players. And I think Hyper has been an entry player for like forever, right? Always, because he's great gunner. But I think compared to some of the other primary entries in the NAL, he's not as aggressive, right? Compared to like a Merc or a Grixer, or, well, I don't know, is Vertical that aggressive? I can't say too. And then like Hot and Cold or Fultz or whatever on Space Station. Fultz specifically, I would say. Hot and Cold maybe is slightly more methodical, but yeah, and Fultz is like, you know, one of the all-time great NAL entry players, and probably just one of the all-time great entry players in general. Like the numbers he's put up in recent years are just like ungodly. Like the duo of him and Rampy, it's just unreal. So I'd say out of all of those guys, probably Hyper's maybe the least aggressive. Like he relies a little bit more on the enemy to set the tempo and him taking advantage of their mistakes and whatnot. And this assessment could be a little bit misplaced, but I think it's relatively accurate. NJR was certainly a gunner. He played, well, before he played in T3 or whatever, but he played on Disrupt, and he was like the dude on that team, and then he got picked up by DZ, and now he's been relegated to like support, and it's weird. Like he's playing Dokkaebi and I guess Jackal. You can do some stuff with Thatcher and Dokkaebi, and then on defense, Smoke, Warden, Smoke. It's really weird to put this dude on Smoke, but I mean, we saw what he can do with Smoke. He had that insane game versus G2 at the major, and then just even that one insane round on Smoke, which was an ace, I think. So I think NJR is just a player who can do like anything. Maybe he's not best used on support, but he can certainly play it. I think he's proved. He's been a powerful flank watch as well. And then Pambazoo, who is, I mean, I hate saying gunner over and over. He is a good gunner, but I think more than a lot of other players, we've seen him make a lot of errors as a young and new player, and maybe I've just noticed it from him a little bit more because it was pointed out at one point, so I started noticing. But it was like at Mexico, he made some post-plant error that like he lost on time because he didn't position himself properly and push at the right time and stuff. And another play, which might have also been in the major, or maybe it was in NAL or something, and it came down to like towards the end of the round, he was around a corner, he like laid down and he shot, so he gave away that he was laying down because you could see his tracers, and he lost that. And then I feel like there was just another one recently. But also watching the guy, he has crazy mechanical skill. Like he's probably one of the more impressive players that I've noticed. I mean, I don't know, maybe I just pay attention to him more because I don't know, for whatever reason. But he looks crazy, like his his movements and everything, his aim, all this stuff. And I mean, certainly he was entering a lot. He was in a lot of entry duels. I mean, opening kill, opening death, and another opening death there. So involved in 5 of the 15 entry duels. I mean, not too bad. But I think there's some other games in the past where he was involved in like a much higher percentage. Right. So all of this to say that, yeah, of course I said like in some regard all of these players are gunners. But if you compare them to the stacks of players on the other top teams, it seems a little bit less. Yeah, I would agree with what you already said about the firepower thing. They are a little bit lacking, but I think they still have enough to make it work. But the other thing I wanted to note is that, so the whole traditional IGL thing, it seems like it's fading away a little bit, but not so much, right? So Canadian in the past, like I said, was a big playmaker, but he was that sort of traditional IGL. I don't know. He's like a little bit different, right? So let's look at somebody like Super is the other one of the top teams because, right, so the main IGL on TSM is like Achieved, an entry player, and then if you go to Oxygen, I guess Foxay now is playing support more, but historically he wasn't really a support player so much. And then on Space Station, it's like Skies, who is also doing support, but also in the past didn't play support, and that didn't play support as much, but he has been on support for the longest time. But I think, I'm not too well versed in it for a lot of teams, but my understanding of Space Station's IGL system is that yes, their primary IGL is their support player in Skies, but they are like on some tri, quad, penta IGL. I don't know. They're all doing some amount of IGLing or calling, I should say. I think Skies is the de facto in-game leader, but they all call, like if they all see an opportunity, they call out that they see the opportunity and what they should do to capitalize on it. And again, I never heard their comms. Maybe like in the past they posted something, but certainly not with this newest team, you know. And like I think Hot and Cold was the main IGL just before Skies joined, so I think it's some combination of him and Fultz and Skies and probably Bosco. I don't know, probably all of them, right? But they are doing some joint IGL joint, okay. And I imagine Sonic's like Yeti's making calls as well, and I don't know, God, any of them could be. But I think Super is that more traditional IGL where he's playing support roles like the whole time. He's playing hard reach on attack and like smoke on defense for the most part. In this game, it was a bunch of Mira because you don't always see smoke on Chalet. But what was my point? Yeah, I don't know what the leadership for Dark Zero looks like exactly. Eclipse is a veteran player, like the most veteran player in the NAL. He's played, I think, in every season of Pro League, which is not true of any other player in NA. He's the only player that this is true of. Maybe the only player in the world because, for NAL obviously, but for their respective leagues. Although it's a little bit easier in LATAM and APAC because those leagues were not established in like year 1, and then LATAM was established, and then maybe it was year 3 when APAC was more established, but since the beginning of the game, I think it's just Eclipse. Like, Alems has been around for a long time, right? And Renshiro, and maybe a handful of other players, but I don't know if there's anyone else that's played every single Pro League season in their respective region like Eclipse has. So, veteran player for sure, but I don't know that he's been that vocal. I don't know if any of them have any of these guys besides Canadian. I just heard some comms. I think it was the comms from the last few rounds they were playing against TSM. And yeah, they're all talking and saying stuff, but I don't know how the leadership rolls out exactly. And okay, I think I was sort of trying to make a point, and I just sort of got lost in the sauce here. But the structure on Dark Zero, I think, is just a little bit weird compared to the other top tier teams, is what I'm trying to get across. Yeah. Okay, I don't know. I'm gonna move on from it. Maybe I conveyed what I was trying to say. Maybe I did not, but I've been talking for like forever, so we'll just move on. This video is going to be mega long, which some people might enjoy, some people will not enjoy and thusly click off of. Finally, the name was Mirage versus Astralis on Villa, and the first few rounds was just like battle of the bad, I guess. Neither of the teams looked that impressive, maybe Mirage in a few rounds, and then over the course of the game, Mirage tightened up and looked pretty good, and Astralis did not, and they looked pretty bad, and they lost the game. So Astralis needs to boss up in the future for sure if they want to avoid having to fight for their spot in the NAL, because again, there's no auto relegation with only 9 teams in the league. But also Astralis, I'll look at this in a minute. Astralis is currently still in the running, I think, for SI. So okay, let's look at that really quick. So there are of course a ton of factors at play here, but going into the stage, these are the standings, and still are the standings, of course, because nobody's confirmed in any sort of spots except for, like, I guess, what? These guys are confirmed for? Oh, yeah. But this just goes to say that Auction, Sonics, and Space Station are confirmed to not get last place in the league. They can't because they have enough points with how many play days are left, so and 8th place gets 115 points. They've got at least 8th place locked up, so they will get at least that many SI points. But whatever, nothing else besides that, I guess, is locked in for any team. So Astralis down here at tied in 15th. Okay, so 15th, 16th, 17th, 15th through 17th is G2, TSM, Astralis. So assuming no teams fall behind them and no teams jump ahead of them, which is not necessarily true, but let's just assume it's true for a minute. That is a possibility. TSM is ahead of Astralis by like 4 points, and they still have 3 games to play, I think. So they're almost certainly ahead of Astralis in SI points. But if we look at G2, the other team they're in contention with, if we go to the EU standings right here, they're in 9th place, which gets no SI points. So if G2 stays in 9th place or goes to 10th place, either one, Astralis will pass them if Astralis can get out of 9th place of their own. So Astralis would really like to get, I mean, even 8th place might be good enough, because in 8th place, you are not getting relegated. You might get enough SI points. You get 115. And like Kavana is, well, they're pretty high. They're 4th place right now, right? So if you get 4th place, you get guaranteed 275 points, 225 from the league, and then minimum 50 at the major. But you can get more than that. You can get up to, I don't even know, if like 500, 600, I don't know how many it is in total from the league and the major. But, okay, so let's just say Kavana only gets 275. So that puts them at, 745 points, which is quite a bit. So they would certainly get past. They'd be like way up here, but also other teams are going to move up. So Astralis really wants Kavana to not do well. Same thing with like MIBR. I didn't pull up the standings for anything besides EU because it's all, this whole block here is EU and NA teams. Empire is, where is Empire? They're in 6th. So yeah, I guess stars sort of have to align for Astralis because they only have 2 games left to play and they're currently in last, so it's going to be difficult. If they can maybe get to like 7th, or yeah, 7th, that's like 140 points, I think. So that'd be 640. It puts them like up here, and they're probably getting. Anyways, it's possible for them, and I guess for Mirage as well. They're only 30 points behind, and Mirage, how much mobility do they have? They still have. Do they still have 3 games? Where is it? Is it this one? Mirage need to play. No, they only have 2 games left, but they have 6 points right now, so they can get up to, you know, up to here, and then depending on what the teams ahead of them do. Mirage also has a chance because so the difference between 8th and 7th place is 25 points, I think, which is not enough to make up the 30-point gap. But then it's 40 points from 7th to 6th, I think, and then 45 points. Yeah, so I don't know. Still tons of conjecture if you really want to make assessments. But with only 3 play days left for, I think we're both regions. Have these guys played? Have EU played 6? Oh, well, they have more play days too, right? Because they have 10 teams. So they have, does it say how many? Okay, let's see somebody's record. Where they've only played 5 games. Okay, so they still have 5 more play days to go. Okay, so things could get wild in EU still, you know, compared to where they are. But okay, enough talk about that. Let's just look at the standings and then the other tab for a second. So yeah, it has happened once again where there are a bunch of ties in NA, just like there were earlier this season, not too long ago. 12, 12, 12, 6, 6, 6, and then a 7, a 5, and a 3. Sonic's, SSG, Oxygen, they are on identical wins and loss records, and round win and round loss, actually, in the case of Space Station and Oxygen. SQ have fewer round wins and more round losses, but it doesn't matter because they have the head-to-head against Space Station, who had the head-to-head against Oxygen. So if these guys remain tied on points, it will be Sonics ahead. But then if Oxygen beat Sonics, then I don't know what it comes down to. I guess it'll be differential, since they'll have like a 3-way tie where Sonics beat Space Station beat Oxygen, Oxygen beat SQ. But if SQ can beat Oxygen, they should be golden, right? Yeah, TSM, Dark Zero, Beast Coast, Mirage, XZ, they're all within 1 point of the closest team. You know, this whole stack is only 2 points apart. And not too much to say about these bottom teams that I didn't already say, you know, with XZ having the harder schedule, but having more points already. Astralis has fewer games to play, but they also have the head-to-head against Astralis, so if they only have to tie them on points. Beast Coast, Mirage seem relatively safe, but they could certainly be passed up if they don't do any more winning. They play each other, so whoever wins that is almost certainly not going to be relegated, and you know, maybe even safe from like 8th place at a point. But I thought about what I wanted to talk for this video a little bit, but because I already went over a lot of this stuff in the recap, I guess there's not too much more to say about it. I don't think I said that in this video, right? That these 3 teams are more than likely going to be in the top 4 and thusly going to the major, and thusly also getting plenty of points for SI because they're all really high. Where is it? As you can see, Sonics, Oxygen, Space Station, they're all, you know, 5, 6, and 8. They're all really close to each other. Or, well, not that close to each other in points because, I mean, there's a big gap here. But in placements, it doesn't actually matter how many points you get as long as it puts you in the top 16 for SI. I don't think you really care. Except for maybe gloating or something, whatever. But yeah, they're almost certainly going to go. And then Dark Zero, I mean, they need to be careful. If they fall to like really low in the league and some number of teams start passing them, they could get knocked out. But they're in pretty good spot. But yeah, I guess I don't have too much more to say about this.